Hey, this is Richie from the Fan of Football 813 YouTube channel, and these are my Week 4 previews. I go in depth a little bit. I'll tell you my picks. Let's just jump right into it. The first game is the Thursday game. Tulsa Golden Hurricane take it on the Temple Owls. Temple, they actually beat Maryland last week after starting 0-2. They looked pretty good against them. Tulsa has a decent quarterback in Luke Skipper, but Temple. This is a really even game, but I'm going to go with Temple to win this one. Friday games, there's 3 of them. All right, Florida Atlantic Owls taking on UCF Knights. UCF better watch out. Florida Atlantic, their running back Devin Singletary just had 5 rushing touchdowns last weekend. Their quarterback Chris Roberson set the school record with 471 passing yards 2 weeks ago. But UCF, they have one of the top offenses in the country, Mackenzie Milton. He's a fringe Heisman candidate. This could really go back and forth. UCF better be careful. I almost want to call this an upset. They're definitely on upset alert, but I think UCF ends up winning. Penn State and Illinois take on the Illinois Fighting Illini. Penn State, Trace McSorley, he's up there for the Heisman. He had 5 total touchdowns last week between rushing and receiving. Illinois, they had a big lead on the USF Bulls. They were up 19-7, but they couldn't hold on. I'm picking Penn State to win this game. The Washington State Cougars take on the USC Trojans. Washington State, they have a transfer quarterback, Gardner Minshew. He came in from ECU. He's thrown for 1,200 yards so far in only 3 games. USC, they have a good wide receiver in freshman Amon-Ra St. Brown. They have a decent quarterback in JT Daniels, who's a freshman. But this is a bit of an upset. I'm going to go with Washington State here. People don't know. They're going to find out about Gardner Minshew. All right, going to the Saturday games, Georgia Bulldogs and Missouri Tigers. There's a lot of really close games this weekend. This is almost all of them. They're getting into conference play. This is one of them. Missouri got Drew Lock at quarterback, one of the best in the country. Their offense can move it up and down the field. Georgia's one of the best teams in the country overall. I want to go with Missouri. Georgia, you are on upset alert big time. I think Georgia might just have a little too much in the end. Maybe defensively, maybe they get something special teams wise. I'm going to go with Georgia to win this. All right, the Notre Dame Fighting Irish take on the Week 4 Steaming Deacons. Another upset alert. I may not even say that today for these games because there's so many. Notre Dame, they've looked underwhelming. They're 3-0, but they didn't look very good last week. They almost lost to Vanderbilt. They almost lost to Ball State, Wake Forest. Their quarterback, Sam Hartman, he's a freshman. He's lighting it up. They have Greg Dortch at wide receiver who can return punts. And he's a really good receiver as well. I'm actually going to go with Wake Forest in an upset in this one. Nebraska Cornhuskers taking on the Michigan Wolverines. Nebraska's not starting off very well under Scott Frost. They're 0-2. They lost to Troy last week. They lost to Colorado the week before. Although those are 2 good teams. And Michigan, they're 2-1 now. Shea Patterson at quarterback. He's coming on a little bit. They have a pretty good defense. I think Michigan, though, ends up winning this one. The next game will be Buffalo Bulls at the Rutgers Scarlet Knights. Buffalo has looked pretty good. Rutgers is not. Buffalo is 3-0. I'm going to go with Rutgers, though. I think they might have a little too much talent with this. You got the Boston College Eagles against the Purdue Boilermakers. Boston College, their running back AJ Dillon, he's one of the best in the country. Their quarterback's coming on. He had 5 touchdown passes last week, I think, over 300 yards passing, which is not really what Boston College does. Yeah, they had Matt Ryan 10 years ago, but he was an anomaly for them. Purdue they're 0-3. They kind of pass it all over the place. David Blau passed for 572 last week. But I think that Boston College ends up with the victory there. The Kent State Golden Flashes take on Ole Miss. Ole Miss is coming off a rough loss to Alabama, but that should be easy. Ole Miss probably have 40 points at halftime. With that one, the Minnesota Golden Gophers take on the Maryland Terrapins. A week ago, I probably would have gone with Maryland, but Maryland was They did not look good against Temple last week. They had a defensive touchdown and a special teams touchdown. They couldn't do anything on offense. Now Minnesota, they're 3-0. They haven't looked like barn burners on offense. Their defense is solid, but I think Minnesota actually is kind of a good overall team. So I think Minnesota will actually win that one. You got the Akron Zips, who they're 2-0, taking on the Iowa State Cyclones. Akron had a nice upset against Northwestern last week. They had 3 defensive touchdowns. Iowa State, though, kept it close with Oklahoma. They could have very well upset them. But I think Iowa State ends up coming out with the victory in this one. You got the Ohio Bobcats taking on the Cincinnati Bearcats. In-state rivalry between 2 Ohio teams. Cincinnati has looked really good. Ohio, they're 1-1. It could be a bit of an upset for Cincinnati, but I'm going to go with Cincinnati to win that. The Nevada Wolfpack take on the Toledo Rockets. Both teams know how to move it all around. Nevada can pass it all over the place. Toledo can as well. They have one of the best wide receiving cores in the country. That being said, I think Nevada will win this one, but this should be a shootout. I would expect both to get to about 40 at least in this game. All right, you have the Navy Midshipmen taking on the SMU Mustangs. SMU hasn't looked very good, really in any way. They've had a pretty decent offense the last few years, but they haven't done a whole lot. Navy, they have a triple option. Their quarterback Malcolm Perry ran for over 200 yards, so I think Navy will win that one. You got the Pitt Panthers taking on North Carolina Tar Heels. Pitt, they had a nice victory against Georgia Tech. North Carolina has not looked good. Quadjarlson at running back, he ran for 1,000 yards a few years ago. I think Pitt should come out with the win in this one. But the Louisville Cardinals take on the Virginia Cavaliers. Virginia's 2-1. They're both 2-1, but Louisville, they almost lost to Western Kentucky. They've just struggled in this game, and so far this season. Virginia has a quarterback in Bryce Perkins who transferred. He's looking really, really good. So I'm going to go with Virginia on that one. Western Michigan Broncos take on the Georgia State Panthers. This could be close, but Western Michigan dropped 68 last week. As in 68 points, yeah. I'm going to go with Western Michigan to win. Miami of Ohio taking on Bowling Green. It could be close. Miami's 0-3. Bowling Green's 1-2, but Bowling Green, their offense under quarterback Jarrett Dagey, he's looked really good. So I'm going to go with Bowling Green to come out with that win. Western Kentucky taking on Ball State. Western Kentucky, they're 0-3. They almost beat Louisville last week. Ball State almost beat Notre Dame a couple of weeks ago. I'm gonna go with Ball State on this one. I think Ball State, they have a good quarterback in Riley Neal. They have 2 running backs, James Gilbert and another guy. They both run for 1,000 yards in their careers. Caleb Huntley ran for 1,000 yards last year. James Gilbert ran for over 1,300 yards 2 seasons ago. I think it'll be too much for Western Kentucky to handle. Colorado State Rams take on 1AA Illinois State. Colorado State's got one of the better offenses in the Mountain West. This should be a pretty easy win for Colorado State. I think I might be sleeping on Illinois State, but I think the Rams should win. You got the Maine Black Bears 1AA team taking on Central Michigan. Central Michigan's 0-3. I feel like they'll be one of the better teams in the MAC. Maine did beat a winning team earlier this year already. They actually beat Western Kentucky, which I just talked about a few moments ago. I think Central Michigan will win, but they better watch out. Maine, there might be an upset there. Central Michigan's really struggling at quarterback, so that's why I'm hesitant about that. But I'm going to go with the Chippewas. All right, the game of the day, one of the games of the day, Texas A&M Aggies take on Alabama Crimson Tide. Alabama put up 62 on Ole Miss. Tua Tagovailoa had a really good game. A&M last week, Kellen Mond had a good game. They put up 48. I said this last week, Alabama, they should really watch it. A&M could go in there and beat them. I said that about Ole Miss, but A&M has a better defense, and I feel just a better overall team. But I can't pull the trigger on this one. I got to go with Alabama until they lose one. But they're definitely on the upset alert there. The Clemson Tigers take on the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Clemson just played a triple option team against Georgia Southern, and so it's kind of a tune-up for them for Georgia Tech, which they have a really good triple option. But I think Clemson, their defensive line, it'll be too much. It could be close for a while. Maybe Georgia Tech shocks them, but I think Clemson, they had their practice the week before. So Clemson wins this one, I believe. The Tulane Green Wave takes on Ohio State. I say it looks like one of the best teams in the country. Dwayne Haskins at quarterback. I think he'll be up for the Heisman. I don't think Ohio State should have any problems. It'll be Urban Meyer's first game back from suspension as the head coach for the Buckeyes. So I think Ohio State wins. The West Virginia Mountaineers taking on the Kansas State Wildcats. This is tricky. On paper, West Virginia should win. Kansas State, they finally kind of looked decent last week against a lower team, a team that's not as good. But Kansas State, every year, if you pay attention to college football, Kansas State, at least once or twice a year, they'll come out and they'll win a game that they probably shouldn't, talent-wise. West Virginia has Will Greer at quarterback, who's a Heisman candidate for sure. They have one of the best wide receiving cores in the country. They can put up points like nobody's business. But Kansas State, they usually have some running quarterbacks who can pass just enough. They keep the ball away. They don't commit a lot of penalties. They get touchdowns from their special teams. This will be really... West Virginia, they should not look past them. I'm going to go with West Virginia to win. But that's a game to keep an eye on that could shake up the college football world, if you were to say. The Virginia Tech Hokies take on Old Dominion Monarchs. Virginia Tech, they got too much on offense, defense. I think Virginia Tech's a really good team. Old Dominion, they lost to Charlotte last week. They looked okay, but Virginia Tech should win this one pretty easily. The Florida International Golden Panthers go take on the Miami Hurricanes. Miami, they played Toledo, which is a really good MAC team. It was kind of close for a while, but Miami ended up winning pretty big. Florida International put up 63 last week. I think Miami should be able to handle their business in this and come out with the win. 1AA Gardner-Webb take on Appalachian State. Appalachian State's one of the better group of 5 teams. They might be the best Sun Belt team. I think Appalachian State wins pretty easy. The Charlotte 49ers take on the UMass Minutemen. This is interesting because the 49ers, they've only been around for 5 years as a football program. They are 2-1. They have a freshman quarterback, but he played well last week and they won. They won their game. UMass normally has a pretty decent offense. They have a good receiver, Andy Isabella. They have a good quarterback in Ejiofor, but they kind of been struggling. So I don't know. I'm picking UMass, but I wouldn't be surprised if Charlotte wins. But I'm going to go with UMass. Duke Blue Devils, they're coming off a nice win against Baylor. Even though they don't have their starting quarterback, their backup came in and filled in well. They're playing on North Carolina Central, which is a AA team. Duke's 3-0. I think they moved to 4-0 with this one. And they win. All right, Northern Illinois taking on the Florida State Seminoles. Florida State, you guys better watch out. Florida State does not look good on offense, on defense at all. Northern Illinois is normally one of the better MAC teams. Now, Northern Illinois hasn't shown a whole lot so far this year in the first few games to show that they could beat Florida State. But Florida State has looked that bad, in my opinion, that Northern Illinois could beat Florida State. That being said, I think I'm going to go with FSU. It pains me to do it, but I think the wise and the logical decision is Florida State. They kind of come out, they show their talent a little bit, and it depends on DeAndre Francois to me, the quarterback. If he does not play well, if he plays as bad as he has been, they could give it away. But I'm going with Florida State. All right, the Kansas Jayhawks take on the Baylor Bears. Kansas, they're kind of surprising a little bit. They put up 55 last week. They're 2-1. Baylor's 2-1 as well. They lost to Duke. That being said, though, I'm gonna give the edge to Baylor. I think until Kansas is showing me a little bit, but I have more faith in the Baylor team. I think they have probably the better talent right now. They have maybe the better coach, at least right now, but they could surprise me with this one. But Baylor, I got your back on this one. All right, maybe a shootout of the day. Arizona Wildcats take on Oregon State Beavers. Arizona has Khalil Tate, a quarterback who isn't doing it running so far. Last weekend he had 5 touchdown passes. Oregon State, they've been able to really move the ball. They're 1-2, but they put up a lot of points. They had 31 against Ohio State. They had 35 last week. They have a running back, true freshman Jamar Jefferson's run for almost 400 yards in the first 3 games. He's over 100 yards the last few games. This is a good game. I'm actually going to go with Oregon State to win this one. Khalil Tate, he can do it passing and normally can do it rushing, but he's kind of hurt. I think Oregon State wins this. The South Carolina Gamecocks take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. South Carolina, they have a good quarterback in Jake Bentley. They have a really good wide receiver in Deebo Samuel. Vanderbilt did almost beat Notre Dame. This could go kind of back and forth maybe, but I think South Carolina in the end will be a bit too much. So I think the Gamecocks win. UConn Huskies take on the Syracuse Orange. This could be a shootout as well, maybe. UConn has a quarterback, David Pendle. He can do it throwing, passing. He kind of just does what he wants. But Syracuse, they have one of the better offenses in the country. They're coming off a big win against Florida State where they put up 30 points and won. Eric Dungey, the quarterback for Syracuse, he was hurt in the game, but the freshman quarterback, Tommy DeVito, came in and they really didn't miss a beat. So this could go back and forth. I'm going to go with Syracuse to win, but who knows. So TCU Horned Frogs take on Texas Longhorns. TCU looked really good against Ohio State. Texas looked great against USC, but I'm not sold on Texas yet. Mainly because I'm also not sold on USC, because Texas killed them 37-14. TCU lost to Ohio State 40-28, and it was back and forth. TCU had a 93-yard touchdown run. They ended up throwing a pick 6, which ended up being one of the differences in the game. I think it'll probably be a pretty good game, but I think TCU ends up coming out with the victory in this one. You got 1AA McNeese taking on BYU. BYU, they're 2-1. They're ranked. They beat a ranked team, number 6 Wisconsin this past weekend. They have a running back, Squally Canada. I'm going to keep saying that name because it's a great name. Tanner Mangum at quarterback. It's pretty good there. I think BYU should come out with that win pretty easily. North Texas Mean Green taking on Liberty Flames. North Texas, man, they are 3-0. They killed Arkansas from the SEC. Not Arkansas State from the Sun Belt. Arkansas. They killed them 44-17. Mason Fine passed all over them. They had a 90-yard punt return for a touchdown. They just did what they wanted. Liberty has a good quarterback in Stephen Calvert. They got a good wide receiver in Antonio Gandy Golden. This could be a shootout, I think. But I'm going to go with North Texas to win. But, both teams could score in the 30s as well and be a fun game to watch. All right, the Army Black Knights take on the Oklahoma Sooners. Oklahoma's looked great. They struggled a little bit against Iowa State last week. And Army is a triple option team, and they give everybody problems. That triple option, it doesn't matter what defense they play. Teams struggle against it. So Oklahoma should be wary, but I think Oklahoma they should just be too good of a team overall. And I think Oklahoma should, they might put up 40-something, maybe win like 42-21 or something like that and have a nice win. All right, the next game we're going to go into is Louisiana Tech Bulldogs taking on the LSU Tigers. Louisiana Tech, they're normally a pretty good offense. They're 2-0. LSU, though, is 3-0. They just came off a nice last-second win against Auburn. They look like one of the best teams in the country. So I think LSU should win that pretty easily. The next game is the Mississippi State Bulldogs taking on the Kentucky Wildcats. They're both 3-0, but Mississippi State, they have a quarterback, and Nick Fitzgerald. He can do it passing and running. I know Kentucky, they have a good quarterback that can do both. But I think Mississippi State would be too much. I honestly don't really see this being close. I think Mississippi State wins pretty easily. One of the games I'm looking forward to, Texas Tech Red Raiders take on Oklahoma State Cowboys. This should be a shootout. Whoever gets this 60 wins. Texas Tech put up 63 last week. Their freshman quarterback, Alan Bowman, threw for 605 yards and 5 touchdowns last week. Oklahoma State had a really good win against Boise State. They put up 44 points. They had 2 block punts for touchdowns. Their quarterback, Taylor Cornelius, though, can pass it around. They have a good receiving core. They have Justice Hill at running back, one of the best in the country. I'm anxious to watch this game. I'm going to go with Oklahoma State to win. I think I enjoy watching Texas Tech. I kind of want them to win as a fan, but I think Oklahoma State just defensively might have a little bit more. But that should be a fun game. The Rice Owls take on the Southern Miss Golden Eagles. Southern Miss has a pretty good passing team. Rice looked okay, but I think Southern Miss should win that one. The Texas State Bobcats take on UTSA Roadrunners. Both teams are not very good. Texas State has Willie Jones III at quarterback. He can run and pass, which is a bit more than what UTSA can do as a team. So I think Texas State wins that one. The UNLV Rebels taking on the Arkansas State Red Wolves. This will be interesting. UNLV, they could be a decent team in the Mountain West. Arkansas State's always one of the best teams in the Sun Belt. Arkansas State always has Justice Hansen at quarterback, threw for almost 4,000 yards last year, 37 touchdowns. They haven't looked as good on offense, but they are 2-1, and they can put up points whenever. UNLV, though, they put up points so far this year. Their running back Lex Thomas, he's one of the best in the Mountain West at running. This could be a shootout. I'm gonna go with Arkansas State in this one, mostly because UNLV is traveling to Jonesboro, Arkansas. I think it's pretty much. I'm not a big believer in home field advantage, but I'm a believer in traveling. And you got to go from Vegas to Arkansas. Their players might be tired. It is a late game. It's a 7 o'clock game that helps UNLV a little bit, but I think Arkansas State should win. Coastal Carolina Chanticleers take on the Louisiana Raging Cajuns. Coastal Carolina put up 58 points last week. They looked really good. Their quarterback, Kelton Anderson, at one point was 8 for 8 for 174 and 3 touchdowns. The Louisiana Raging Cajuns, they can move it around as well. Their quarterback situation isn't bad. I mean, they have Andre Nunez. He's looked okay. Trey Vegas, the running back, but I think I'm actually gonna go with Coastal Carolina to win that one. But should be a close one. The Troy Trojans coming off a nice victory against Nebraska, taking on the Louisiana Monroe Warhawks. Both teams can score. I think Troy, though, is just the better overall team. They usually have a good defense. The past years they've had a pretty good offense. They had a punt return for a touchdown against Nebraska last week. I think Troy shouldn't look past them. They should. Hopefully they're not letting that win against Nebraska cloud them, but I think Troy should win. NC State Wolfpack take on Marshall Thundering here. This is Ryan Finley. He's the quarterback for NC State. He's a NFL type prospect. They have a pretty good offense. He can pass it around, but Marshall's looked really good this year. They've passed it around a lot. They're 2-0 themselves. I'm gonna go with NC State to win. But upset alert there. Marshall could very easily go in there and win. All right, the Florida Gators, they're taking on the Tennessee Volunteers. The Gators bounced back nicely after losing to Kentucky. They beat Colorado State 48-10. Felipe Franks didn't look very good. He didn't end up very good. But our special teams, we had a punt block for a touchdown. We had a punt return for a touchdown. The Volunteers beat UTEP last week 24-0. UTEP is one of the worst teams in the country. They went 0-12 last year. In Tennessee, they struggled. It was 10-0 at halftime. They couldn't really get anything going. I mean, I'm a bit of a homer, you know. I'm a Gator fan, but just looking at it, I think on defense we should be fine. And Tennessee doesn't have a lot offensively to be scared about. They have some nice running backs, but it's kind of it. So I'm gonna go with the Gators to win. Arkansas Razorbacks taking on Auburn. Man, Arkansas, I don't know what to say about it. You got killed by North Texas 44-17. And I say it that way. North Texas is a good CUSA team, but they should not have lost by 27 points to them. Auburn, they're coming off a last-second loss to LSU, but I think Auburn is just the better team. I got to go with Auburn to win that. Michigan State Spartans taking on the Indiana Hoosiers. Michigan State, they struggled so far. They almost lost to Utah State out of the Mountain West. They did lose to Arizona State last week. Indiana's 3-0. I want to go with Indiana, but Michigan State until they really, this will be the game I feel like for me, even win or lose, to tell me about Michigan State's season. I'm gonna go with Michigan. Brian Lewerke, he is a good quarterback. Indiana, they've been able to run it pretty decently, but I do think Michigan State should win. All right, you got the New Mexico State Aggies and the UTEP Miners. This is the Pillow Bowl. New Mexico State's 0-4. UTEP's 0-3. But I'm going to go with New Mexico State. They've at least showed a pulse. They've been able to put up some points here and there and get something going. UTEP just can't. They can barely walk on the field without tripping. So I'm going to go with New Mexico State. Stanford Cardinal at Oregon. Oregon Ducks. This is where College Game Day is going to be. Both teams are 3-0. The Cardinal, Bryce Love at running back should be back. They've been a weird team. They like Catus Castello, their quarterback. He's been okay. They basically have one receiver and J.J. Arcega-Whiteside. Now he's really good, but I just can't see them keeping up with Oregon. Oregon has sort of struggled like statistically, but Justin Herbert is one of the best quarterbacks in the Pac-12. He's passing all over the place. They're still able to run all over the place. I'm going with Oregon to win this game. Next game, ECU Pirates at USF Bulls. ECU, USF, they're 3-0. They're coming off two come-from-behind victories. Last week against Illinois, they were down 19-7. They won 25-19. 2 weeks ago, they were playing Georgia Tech in that triple option. They were down by 10 late in the game, and they won that one 49-38. ECU, they lost to a 1AA team early, then they killed North Carolina. ECU can pass it all over the field, but USF's offense has looked too good. Too good to be stopped. Anyway, Blake Barnett at quarterbacks has been great for UCF. Reed Herring, the quarterback for ECU, he's looked really good. But USF, they've shown the last couple of weeks to make some timely, force some timely turnovers, make some timely defensive stops. So I think the Bulls win this one. You got Texas Southern 1AA taking on Houston Cougars. I think Houston demolishes them. Houston has looked great on offense so far. They're 2-1. They put up Derek King, threw for 5 touchdowns last week. Houston, if they don't have like 40 by the end of the first quarter, I mean, I say that somewhat facetiously, but if they don't have 40 by halftime, it'd be, kind of a disappointment. You got the South Alabama Jaguars taking on the Memphis Tigers. South Alabama doesn't have a lot. Memphis is too much. They have Brady White at quarterback who's a transfer. He's been amazing. Darrell Henderson, their running backs, he's already run for over 500 yards in the first 3 games. The last 2 games he put up well over 200 yards rushing. I think Memphis wins this going away. Then you got the Wisconsin Badgers against the Iowa Hawkeyes. This is interesting. Wisconsin is coming off being upset. They dropped in the polls. They're 2-1. Iowa's 3-0. Iowa's one of the teams. They always play really sound defense. They have a decent quarterback. They have decent quarterback play. Usually a decent running game. Wisconsin has Jonathan Taylor at running back. He's a definite Heisman candidate. But they go to Iowa, and it's in Kinnick Stadium. It's at 8:30 p.m. That's where Iowa gets these wins. If Wisconsin had come in undefeated, I would have gone Iowa. That being said, I think Wisconsin will be a little motivated coming off of the loss to BYU, and I think Wisconsin will win this. But this is a game that could be like 16-13, 13-12, like some random 15-11. I don't know, some like random low scoring game. But I think Wisconsin wins that one. You got Air Force Falcons taking on the Utah State Aggies. This one is going back and forth. In my mind, Air Force has a good triple option team. Utah State, they've looked pretty good on offense. They put up 73 points last week. They put up 38 on Michigan State's defense, which is normally good. This will be a good game. I think Utah State, though, ends up winning that one. All right, you got the Arizona State Sun Devils taking on the Washington Huskies. Arizona State, after upsetting Michigan State, they were upset by San Diego State last week, which I called. I actually called both of them. I called for them to beat Michigan State the week before and then to lose. Washington, they're a top 10 team, but they haven't really looked like it. Jake Brown has been kind of subpar. Their running back, Myles Gaskin, he's one of the best in the country. Manny Wilkins is a really good quarterback for Arizona State. This could go back and forth. I'm going with Washington to win. Arizona State has N'Keal Harry at wide receiver. He's one of the best in the country. But I think Washington ends up with their defense is a little too good, and they win. Eastern Michigan taking on San Diego State. Aztecs, San Diego State. I'm going to keep touting them. Juwan Washington against a Pac-12 team, again, ran for over 130 yards. I think East Michigan has a pretty good, a nice team overall, but I think this is San Diego State's game. They don't normally blow teams out, but it's the kind of thing they could win like 38-13 or 14 or something like that. And the nightcap, Duquesne, Blade going to Hawaii, taking on the Rainbow Warriors. This should not be close. Cole McDonald, even though they lost to Army last week, he still threw for 321, 2 touchdowns, no picks. And it was his season low. When you're throwing 321 and that's your season low, and by the way, he's thrown 15 touchdown passes and 0 interceptions. And that's hard to do even if you're not a passing team, and that's what they do is pass. If they don't have 50 by halftime, I'll be surprised. They should put up. John Rasua at wide receiver should put up some points in this. So that's my kind of in-depth preview for week 4. Check out our Twitter, like, share, subscribe, all this stuff. And come back and watch our picks for the college picks, our NFL picks, and I just dropped my review the other day for last week's game. So, peace.